The walk home that day was very quiet. Alex could sense that her brother's presentation had left him a little tense. She tried breaking the silence every few steps with supportive comments. Or at least she thought they were supportive. "I thought you made a good point," she said sweetly. "Granted, it's not a point I ever would have made." "Thanks," Connor replied. She wasn't helping. "You may have overanalyzed it, though," Alex said. "I do it all the time. Sometimes I read a story and interpret it the way I want to, rather than the way the author wanted me to. It just takes practice." He didn't respond. She still wasn't helping. "Well, it's our birthday today," Alex reminded him. "Are you excited to be 12? "Not really," Connor admitted. "It feels just like 11. But aren't we supposed to be getting a new set of molars soon?" "Come on, let's be positive," Alex insisted. "Even though we aren't doing anything exciting for our birthday, we should stay optimistic. There are plenty of things to look forward to. One more year until we'll be teenagers." "I suppose," Connor said. "Only 4 more years left until we can drive." "And 6 years left until we can vote and go to college," Alex added. That was all they could come up with. Their cheerfulness was hollow and they both knew it, so they just stayed silent for the remainder of the walk. Even if they had the most extravagant party in the world waiting for them at home, birthdays were always going to be hard for them. School had been predictable. The walk home had been typical. The whole day had seemed normal. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary to make their birthday feel special at all, until they got home and saw a bright blue car pull into their driveway. "Grandma!" the twins said in perfect unison. "Surprise!" yelled their grandmother, getting out of her car. She was so loud the entire neighborhood could hear her. The twins ran up to her with huge smiles on their faces. They only saw their grandmother a couple times a year, and they were stunned to see her in their driveway with no prior warning. Their grandmother hugged both of them so tight they thought they'd pop. "Look at you two," she said. "You both look like you've grown a foot since the last time I saw you." Their grandmother was a petite woman with long, graying brown hair that was pulled back in a tight braid. She had the warmest smile and the kindest eyes in the world, which wrinkled pleasantly when she smiled, just like the twins' dad's eyes had. She was cheerful and energetic, and exactly what the twins needed. She always wore bright dresses and her signature shoes with white lace and brown heels. She was never more than a few feet away from her large green travel bag and blue purse, and although their grandfather had died many years before, she always wore her wedding ring. "We had no idea you were coming," Connor said. "It wouldn't be a surprise if you knew I was coming," Grandma said. "What are you doing here, Grandma?" Alex asked. "Your mom called and asked me to stay with you while she went to work," Grandma told them. "I couldn't let you spend your birthday alone, could I? Thank goodness I was in the country." Their grandmother was retired and spent most of the year traveling around the world with her other retired friends. They traveled to mostly third world countries and read to sick children in hospitals and taught other children of the communities to read and write. "Come help me with the groceries," Grandma told the twins. She opened her trunk and the twins began unloading bags and bags filled with food into the house. It was enough food to last them for weeks. Mrs. Bailey was sitting at the kitchen table going through another stack of mail with bright red warning labels on them. She quickly pushed them to the side when the twins and their grandmother paraded into the kitchen with the groceries. "What's all this?" Mrs. Bailey asked. "Hello, dear," Grandma said to her. "I'm planning on cooking the twins a huge birthday dinner and wasn't sure what you had in the house, so I went to the store and picked up a couple things." Their grandmother always had a talent for sugarcoating the truth. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble," Mrs. Bailey said, shaking her head, unprepared for this kind gesture. "It wasn't any trouble at all," Grandma said, with a small but reassuring smile. "Alex, Connor, how about you go get your birthday presents from the front seat of my car and I'll catch up with your mom for a second. But don't open them until tonight." They happily did as she asked. Presents was a word that had been absent from their vocabulary for a very long time. "See, I told you," Alex said to Connor on their way to their grandmother's car. "Optimism always pays off." Yeah, Connor said. Half a dozen wrapped presents, with bright bows, each marked to one of them, were waiting in the front seat of the car. The twins returned inside with their gifts. Their grandmother and mother were still having a conversation that they most likely weren't supposed to hear. "Things are still tough," Mrs. Bailey said. "Even after selling the bookstore, the house foreclosed, and we still have some debt and things unpaid from the funeral. But we're making it somehow. In a few more months, we'll be back on our feet." Grandma took Mrs. Bailey's hands into her own. "If you need anything, dear, and I mean anything, you know where to find me," she said. You've already helped me so much," Mrs. Bailey told her. "I don't know where we'd be now if it weren't for you. I could never ask you for anything else." "You're not asking, I'm offering," Grandma assured. The twins knew if they eavesdropped any longer, they'd be caught, so they walked back into the kitchen with their presents. "Well, I have to go back to work," Mrs. Bailey said, and kissed both of the twins on the top of their heads. Have a great night, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Save some celebration for me." She gathered her things and mouthed a meaningful thank you to their grandmother on her way out. Grandma put her things away in the guest bedroom and returned to the kitchen, where she found the stack of bills Mrs. Bailey had put aside. She plopped the mail into her own purse with a smile, and that was that. Grandma loved helping people, especially if it was against their will. "Let's get started on dinner, shall we?" Grandma said, clapping her hands.